Hi, Chris.
Just take it off.
Take it off, okay. All right, two things. Can you hear me? I know in one of your studies you were talking about tribulations,
Yeah.
plural. And I know the first tribulation was in two parts. There was a ratio, I think, if I remember correctly, 2/3, 1/3, if I remember correctly.
Not exactly, but it close to.
Close.
Yeah.
And it seems that, well, I wonder, with the possibility of 2033, I noticed that October 7th, if it has any spiritual significance, has the same ratio. Just about 2/3, 1/3, going from May 21st to October, and then from October to 2033. And it's just a thought, you know.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can check it out.
Right, because the other thing about October is that obviously it wasn't the end. So, but also I wonder, because it seems that the Feast of Tabernacles is what was really in view of something was like, it seems like the Bible was pointing something strongly about the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, based on your study and from God's Word, that we have a better understanding of the Feast of Tabernacles, that it's not one day, it's the duration of the whole judgment period. So a question I presented to you a little while back, because we always thought, well, the Feast of Tabernacles, the language of it points to the end of the world. So we kind of thought that the day that Christ returns would have something strongly to do with maybe on the Feast of Tabernacles or thereabouts, like when we were looking at October 21st, 2011. But now that we have understanding that the Feast of Tabernacles is not one day, it's like Judgment Day is not one day, it's the whole duration. The Feast of Tabernacles is the whole duration. That it was a question I had before, that if it's something that's being fulfilled or was fulfilled or being fulfilled, and now we seem to have the understanding that it's being fulfilled, God is not obligated to come on that feast. So could it be possible that now, because it would be interesting that if the Lord, let's just say, the Lord returned on the anniversary of Christ's resurrection, if he resurrects us, you know, somewhere around Easter, and then it seems to be a lot of relation between, so anyway, that was one.
It's something that's possible, and I think we have to look, because we don't know the date. The biblical evidence is mounting for the year 2033, but we don't know, like May 21 of that year.
Right.
We don't have that kind of day and month. And so we need to keep looking with an open mind. And it is interesting, around the time of the Passover, which was Christ's resurrection, it's approximately 8,000 days from May 21, 2011, and 8,000 would be 5 times 1,600. As you mentioned, the 1,600 going to October 7th, 2015. Well, 5 times that would take us to a pretty interesting date in the year 2033. And 1,600 is 40 times 40. So basically it's 5 times 40 times 40 that there's a particular day that would fall in that year. I've looked at other dates and none are as interesting as that so far, but God opens up things according to his timetable, and right now, we're how many years away? We're soon to be 15, so we probably don't have a need to know as yet, but as we get closer, I'm sure the Lord will open up more information.
And what's also interesting about that time frame, both pictures that God gives of going in to the new heavens, the situation with the flood, coming out of the ark, and then crossing over to Jordan, they both happened roughly around the same time of the year, the first part of the year. I believe when they crossed the Jordan, I believe it was the month Nisan. the first month of the Jewish calendar, and when they
Yeah.
came out of the ark, it was the second month. So basically around that
Well,
same.
crossing Jordan is significant because that's the end of a 40-year wilderness sojourn.
Right,
And we're looking at a 40-year timeline from 94 inclusively to 2033.
right.
But it's something, yeah, we have time and we can just consider and ask for guidance and see. At some point, I think it'll lock in.
Right.
It'll be very evident.
Right. The next and last question is Judges 19. For the longest, I didn't see that situation as very similar to Genesis and the situation of Sodom and Gomorrah, where the similarities where the men of the city, a stranger came into the town, he wanted to lodge in the street,
Yeah.
and then the man beckoned him, no, don't lodge in the street, come into my house, and then it's a whole dialogue about
And
that.
I think he pressed upon them too.
And he pressed upon
Yeah.
him. And then that language of the men that surrounded, the two men I think it was, or maybe it was more, that surrounded his house and said, bring him out, we want to know him. And it was in, the same situation with Sodom and Gomorrah, that they wanted to have sexual relations with that man, But then the difference is God brought Lot and his family out and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. This situation, the guy offered up his daughter or the concubine, and then they took her and did whatever, and then in the morning he found her dead, and he cut her up into 12 pieces and cast her into the coast. Could that be a picture of the corporate church in some kind of way, God destroying?
Yeah, I think it is that the concubine would be a picture of the apostate church who is abused and
If you want to do that.
I think I'll just keep it in general. But it might be that that's pointing at the judgment on the church, and and what's going on in Sodom is related to the judgment on the church, but it also relates to May 21, 2011, because just how it's laid out historically and the coming out. So it's as though Lot and his family are coming out of the church in time before Judgment Day comes of May 21, 2011. So it's a judgment on the world and the church simultaneously. And then he makes it into Zoar, and then another picture happens. But I think in Judges 19, it's just focused on the judgment on the church, and not so much, you don't see that total destruction. You see a total destruction of a tribe, almost, of Israel, Benjamin, and so it's pointing to God's judgment on the church without emphasis on Judgment Day. But thank you.
Thank you.